Step 1, pull any beer you like out of your fridge. Step 2, open the beer. Step 3, drink the beer. Yeah, that beer doesn't have anything to do with this, but we are cooking with beer today. I just thought you might want to have a beer. So we're gonna make a beer braised beef brisket, but the first thing we need to do is make a little wet rub for the brisket. I'm gonna start with 6 cloves of garlic. I'm gonna throw those in the food processor and give those a few pulses to chop them up. If you have wicked knife hands, you probably don't need a processor, but I don't. Let's add in the rest of the rub. I'm gonna start with a 1/4 cup of salt. This recipe came off of Bon Appetit, but I changed it up a bit. A tablespoon of cumin. One of these is paprika, and one of these is cayenne. Which is which? Cayenne! Yeah! Tablespoon of paprika, tablespoon of cayenne. Get in there. Tablespoon, 2 tablespoons, I think. Nah, I don't remember. It was on the recipe somewhere. Stop it. Of olive oil. That's part of what's going to make this a wet rub. Here's the other wet ingredient. 2 tablespoons of Dijon mustard. Then we have 2 teaspoons of black pepper and 1 teaspoon of white pepper in here. I like the mix. And 2 tablespoons of brown sugar. This is gonna really caramelize on there. Give it a dash of your beer, because why wouldn't you? Throw the lid on, turn this thing on. Mix that up till it's pretty smooth. Looks good to me. Now we are ready for the meat. Clear off all this stuff. I should point out that I prepped all these earlier. That's gonna help you a lot. Cooking is art, but measuring is science. And when you try and combine them, it can be hard. It's really good, but it can be really hard to go back and forth, measure, mix, measure, mix. Do all the science first. This is a 6.6 pound beef brisket. This is an expensive piece of meat. Don't fuck it up. I'm gonna open this up. I'm not gonna open this up yet. I'm gonna cover my surface here with some saran wrap. Man, that cayenne is really still getting me. This meat comes from Iowa Meat Farms here in San Diego. Let's open this up. This is an untrimmed fat cut brisket. I did have them even out the fat cap because it can be really bulbous in areas and it won't cook evenly if you don't do that. This cuts you! Be careful! Once you put this down, you can have more beer. You're done with the sharp part. Yes! That's good. Ballast Point Longfin. This is really good. Lager, yeah! It's too bad the other beers give lager a bad name, because that's freaking awesome. Let's get this wet rub on the beef. Yeah. You have to rub this in with your hands, so if you haven't washed your hands, go do it now. I washed mine right before this. Oh, that's both awesome and gross. You gotta rub this thing all over, rub this stuff all in. Got the rub all over it. Now go wash your hands again. Clean hands, woo! Now that you're done playing with your meat, you can have some more beer. Now we have to wrap this thing up and a bunch of saran wrap. And then we're gonna put it in the refrigerator for a day. 2 days even if you want. I'm really bad with saran wrap. Legendarily bad with saran wrap. So pull it all out. This is what you're not supposed to do. My God, if you have a saran wrap tip, please God help me. Once you've successfully mummified it in saran wrap, put this in the refrigerator for a day. Brisket's been in the refrigerator overnight. I just pulled it out and unwrapped it from its saran wrap cocoon. I've got a clean aluminum foil roasting pan. I ran some onions through my mandolin this morning. No drinks involved. Be very careful with the mandolin. It will cut you. I'm just going to create a bed of sliced onions on the bottom of this that the beef brisket's going to sit on. They're sliced a little bit on the thick side so that they don't completely disintegrate, because this is going to be in the oven for a long time. My oven's set to 325 degrees and I've had the brisket out of the refrigerator for about an hour to start to come up to room temperature so that the oven doesn't have to fight with that. Now to the onions, I'm going to add a bottle of lager. Use a good beer for this. I'm using Ballast Point Longfin, a very good beer, one I was drinking yesterday. Make sure to use a beer that you would drink. Lagers, generally for this, you don't want a lot of hops, but you want that malty goodness. They make a great braising liquid. They add maltiness, but they also do a lot to tenderize the meat. Also, don't use a cold beer for this. You don't need the oven to have to fight that. Now, once you've got that in there, you're going to put your brisket in. If your brisket has a thin end like this, just fold it under. You want the fat side up, just lay it in. Push it down in, get it down onto the liquid and the onions. Actually looks something like that. You're ready to put it in the oven. You want this thing to be fork tender when it comes out. At 325 degrees, it's going to take a while. I'm guessing for this size about 4.5 hours. I'll probably check it at 3.5. We'll be back then. After about 4 hours, 4 hours 15, pulled it out of the oven. It's perfectly fork tender, just falling apart. You also end up with some liquid left, the rest of the braising liquid, and some nicely cooked onions. Now at this point you could slice it against the grain. It would be delicious. But then you don't have too much to do with this liquid, and this tastes too good to waste. So I'm going to shred and chop this into a glass bowl and then combine some of the liquid back in. Oh, look at this thing. I put a rough chop on it, and now I'm just going to pull it apart in the bowl. You can see how this is done. It's just falling apart. So I'm just going to get into this bowl and shred this up a little more now so that the juices can really mix in when we pour that back in there. I'm also throwing out a little bit of the excess fat. Once you've got a nice bowl of shredded beef that looks something like this, you want to add in some of your liquid, pretty much to taste. Remember, this is salty and spicy from everything we put in there, so be careful with it. You'll probably get some of the onions in there too. If you really like the onions, you can mix in all the onions that you have left. I'm going to keep most of them on the side. It's pretty moist right there, but I'm going to just put the rest in because I think it's going to be delicious. Give that a good mix. Oh yeah, you want that sound. I don't know if you can hear that, but that gushing, yummy, oh, delicious sound. And this is now ready to eat. I've got a buttered toasted pretzel roll here. I'm going to just scoop a nice handful of this onto it. Then I am going to put on a few of those onions that we cooked. You really need something bright and crunchy to add to this. Well, my wife, Wendy Hates Beer, made some homemade pickled cabbage last night. So I'm going to put some of that on there. Some homemade pickled onions. I'm just going to put a couple of those on there. It's going to give a lot of brightness to this and also a lot of crunch, which you can use. And you're going to walk away with something that looks like this. Look at how good that looks. I can't wait. So I'm not going to. Oh my. It's juicy and meaty and spicy and salty and crunchy and a little sour. Kind of perfect. I'm supposed to take this to my in-laws for Easter, but there's no way. You need to make this because you need to eat this. The best thing to pair this with, and this is really true for any dish you make with beer, it's the beer you made it with. So I would serve this with the Longfin lager we used in the braising liquid. It's going to match because it's in it. Well, that's it for me. I'm just going to keep eating this. So.